During the Manson family murder trial, and in the blizzard of books, documentaries, and exposés that followed over the years, it seemed like every single day of Charles Manson's adult life had been accounted for. This was made easier, of course, by the fact that the man himself spent the majority of it in jail. Yet there is one period in the cult leader's life that is still shrouded in mystery. From January till June of 1960, Charles Manson was in Mexico. What he was doing there may never be known. The only accounts of his time south of the border have come from the man himself. Like everything else he says, these accounts should be treated with a great deal of skepticism. The lack of detail and the strange disinterest of US authorities in why he was there and what he was doing has led to some interesting speculation. What is known for sure is that Manson was deported to Laredo, Texas on the 1st of June by the Mexican authorities, who classified him as a, quote, undesirable alien. At the time, there was an outstanding warrant for Manson's arrest under the Mann Act for, in the Act's words, transporting women for immoral purposes. We know all this because two articles appeared in the Laredo Times concerning his case. The first, on the 2nd of June 1960, details his deportation and arrest, together with a quote from Manson, stating that he was confused. The second article, on the 7th, described Manson waiving any proceedings and being ordered transported to California on the Mann Act charge. Manson's own tales on his time in Mexico were characteristically large in the telling. In one, he went to Mexico City and trained with matadors. Naturally, he mastered the art of the matador in no time, but wasn't allowed to become one because he was too short. In other versions, he was caught in possession of drugs, then of a stolen weapon. Then in a 1992 parole hearing, he rambled about being held there on suspicion of murdering French people and, quote, a couple of dudes in Acapulco. It would seem odd that he would simply be deported if he was facing such serious charges. A brutal and unsolved double murder on the 13th of September 1959 in Mexico City that bore some resemblance to the Tate LaBianca killings has attracted the attention of some researchers. While it's a fascinating link, in September, Manson was pleading guilty to check fraud. He received probation, so was theoretically on the loose. However, he seems to have spent free time in September running girls in New Mexico. So what of the more vivid theories surrounding the future cult leader's time there? In the late 1950s, the beatnik era was in full swing, and the early versions of hippies were starting to emerge. Beatnik communities existed in both New Mexico, and hallucinogenic mushrooms played a huge part in that lifestyle. A 1957 Life magazine article entitled Seeking the Magic Mushroom brought the beatnik drug scene to a wider public audience. The movement had gained an interest in the Mazatec drug culture in Mexico. Manson could have followed along, yet there's not much evidence that he was that big of a drug taker until after he was released from jail in 1967 and headed for the Summer of Love in San Francisco. The beatniks weren't the only people interested in the Mazatec drug culture. Documents released under Freedom of Information requests revealed that the CIA were all over it too, as part of the infamous mkultra program. Further releases revealed that the intelligence agencies, under various programs, had exposed American citizens to hallucinogenic drugs, often under false pretenses and completely without their knowledge, so that they could study any potential application in mind control. Could that have been the purpose of Manson's time in Mexico, whether he knew it or not? The theory ties in neatly with those put forward in Tom O'Neill's book, Chaos, Charles Manson, the CIA, and the Secret History of the 60s. The book would make another video on its own, but the gist of it is that O'Neill found a number of odd anomalies once he gained access to Manson's parole file, via freedom of information. It led him on to a much wider theory of who and what was behind Tate LaBianca. In San Francisco, Manson enjoyed an unusual relationship with his parole officer, Roger Smith. Smith had an unconventional approach to his job, to say the least. Repeatedly ignoring information that would normally have led to Charlie's parole being violated, he also allowed Manson extraordinary latitude in general. O'Neill links this to Operation Chaos, a CIA program of the time that sought to infiltrate and destabilize radical and revolutionary organizations, such as the Black Panthers. It also included attempts to sow discord in the hippie counterculture from within. O'Neill freely admits that he can't definitively link Manson to chaos, but if a link was there, it would bring the mysterious Mexico trip into much sharper focus. In the end, Manson in Mexico was probably just another chapter in the story of a career criminal's aimless drifting across the US. A sojourn in Mexico, just one more diversion from the law that was nearly always hot on his heels. Or the anomalies could mean something much more. The cult leader's convenient memory loss and ever-changing stories. The revealed involvement of the CIA in beatnik drug culture in Mexico. Is it possible that the Manson family, their crimes and their earth-shattering influence on the culture of America, were the tumultuous outcome of a sinister intelligence program, years in the making? Probably not, but would anyone be surprised if it were?